Hey Blue Crew, Richard here, and today I wanted to talk about some of the most commonly used equipment at the pool, which is the foam pool noodle. Now obviously this isn't the most exciting piece of equipment. It costs between $1 and $2, but you can use this to create a lot of really interesting resistance training effect and also stability when you're doing single side work or things where you're balancing forward. So I think you can always use a noodle for stability, especially with lower body work. And for the upper body, what's interesting is that you can generate concentric contractions in single directions. Whereas usually when we push and pull the water, we get chest and back or opposing muscle groups activated. If you were to push a noodle through the water and then take it out to bring it back in a circular motion, then you can isolate, let's say, the shoulders and chest, or maybe and rear deltoids. A couple safety tips to keep in mind is that people generally have too much wrist flexion, right? Generally, if they're typing or on their phones, they're already doing this with their hands all day. So if we give them a noodle for an entire hour and they keep this wrist flexion, they're gonna really overuse and maybe even burn out their wrists and their forearms. So it's important as you use the noodle, maybe to concentrate on a muscle group to then give your class time to recover and to relax their hands. So you want to encourage your students to splay their fingers nicely, to grab it gently, and then to really focus on the muscle groups of the proximal part of the body that you're generally trying to work, right? So if you're doing biceps and triceps, maybe a short lever and a push down, or chest and back, a long lever, but really isolate those muscle groups to avoid just making it feel like a lot of wrist workout, which they probably don't need. Also, be really careful when you're breaking the surface of the water. Yes, we can bring the noodle in and out of the water, but you have to be careful of the meniscus, the top of the water, because that's where the most of the resistance happens. So if you're changing the plane of motion or changing the position of the noodle, make sure that you give them adequate time to transition, set up, and to feel the work where the work is meant to be felt. And lastly, when it comes to suspension, this is not really gonna make everyone float completely. It will help them swim, help them float, but it's not a life-saving device. It's not an aid. So in general, if someone's really nervous about bringing both feet up off the bottom, maybe they can keep the noodle in front or avoid using the noodle and have that suspended or touch down between every step and transition. Also, in terms of using it to float and suspend and hopefully train the core muscles and the transversus abdominals, avoid the cervical flexion, avoid what sometimes this tends to happen. So making sure that they're staying semi-seated, still assisting themselves with their arms, and then really making it about their torso being either perpendicular to the floor or slightly suspended so that they can get the recruitment of the core muscles. I hope these tips help. Grab a noodle, try it in the water, and let me know how it goes.